Welcome back to the Make It Count podcast. I'm Marcus Mire, founder of Mire Group CPAs and the Total Control Accounting System. And today I'm hosting with a different co-host. We got Quinton Autin here from Mire Group. So you got two. I don't even know.
A double dose.
Yeah, I don't even know what I was going to say there. I wanted you to fill it in. We're talking 1099. So we were laughing a minute ago by looking at Quinton's voice, looking at Quinton's face, and hearing the passion in his voice from last week doing 1099. So I just wanted to bring him in here and talk about 1099s, the process as a business owner, why you should do them, or why you shouldn't do them, why you should care, why you shouldn't care, kind of the basics around 1099. So give me a little backdrop, kind of where we started the conversation a little while ago.
Yeah, so we are fresh off of 1099 prep, as you just said, and we always do a recap of any deadline we go through, pain points, how was it successful, what did we struggle with, and it was just the gathering the data for 1099s and business owners not always being so proactive throughout the year. And so when we're saying, hey, we need, based on what you've paid these vendors, which is if you pay someone $600 or more for services in the year, you should issue them a 1099. And we say, hey, here's a list based on your activity, who you should provide a 1099 to. We need W-9s for these. W-9 is how you capture the information of ID number, address, entity name or individual name,
right?
And how to use that to issue the 1099. And so best practice would be have W-9s on file, provide those to us, and we can prepare them. And a bunch of owners, or managers of the businesses, just those documents are not kept. And so we're scrambling. Right. We have a 2-3 week period to contact all these vendors.
Like your lawn service guy.
Yeah. The people you pay rent to. You got to issue one for rents paid. And just trying to gather that data. And then most people, don't have an email address for them. You're calling the business.
Yeah.
You're trying to reach them. And not everybody's very willing to give you that information, right? Because they know why you're knocking. They know why you come and knocking. And I can't get that to you. I don't know where that,
Right. Well, and I think too, one of the things you brought up is like we're starting this thinking about our process, which admittedly I don't think was great. If we do a lot of self-evaluation here at Mire Group, and we talk about all the ways we sometimes stink it up. I think 1099s is one of those. I think we feel it too, in the sense that like it's one of those things. It's like it's a thankless job. Like, who wants to issue a 1099? We as a CPA certainly don't want to be after you to issue them. So the backdrop is this. This is what I tell my clients. Here's the backdrop. You're supposed to issue them. By law, if you pay somebody over $600 for services, not materials, for services, you're supposed to issue them a 1099. Okay. Right then and there, you're thinking, I hear people all the time, you work for the IRS, you're their agent. I say, listen, I don't make the rules, but it is a rule. And then people say, well, what's the issue? What if I don't? I say, listen, I haven't seen many people get fined for not issuing them, but there are fines literally written into the law. What is it? $270 per? I mean, it's expensive. And then you made a good point earlier. There's a place on your income tax return where you have to check off and say 2 questions. Did I have basically reportable transaction, like people I was supposed to issue 1099s to? You say yes or no. And the next question is, did I issue them?
And did you issue all required 1099s? Yeah. It's not even saying, did you issue a few? Did you issue some?
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Do you file all required?
Right.
And so now it's not only on it's now on, as the CPA preparing the tax return, we're asking you like, hey, we have to check this box. Give me the answer. And so it's like a step further now of.
Yeah. So what would be a good way for, like, we kind of talking about, okay, we stunk it up. We should have been helping. I mean, we got them throughout the year for some people, but we should have been helping clients do it. Why and how should they be doing it throughout the year? So how could it be better for, name your law firm who's got to issue 1099 or has vendors that they pay?
Yeah. So we always say, the only leverage you have. The real leverage you have is before you pay someone for the first time.
Right.
It's almost like onboarding an employee. When you get a new employee, you get their W-4, the I-9. You get all the documents you need to substantiate them as an employee to get them set up in your system. And it should be the same way for your contract folks. You should, when somebody comes on board, before you pay them the first time, you should require them to fill out the W-9. And then that's easier said than done, especially in the world where we have a lot of people working remote on a job, doing things. But
Right.
I think there should be some type of internal process of before you make a payment, you should have this documentation on file.
And I think, to help a little bit there, you made a point of, well, it's a pain, it's like, it's hard to, it's not like the W-4 because that employee's in your office, right? So for your pest control guy, he's not at the office, right? You don't see him, but he is somebody you pay for services. So what you could do is there's services that allow you to capture a W-9. And to give a little background, like Quinton said, the W-9 is basically a form where you issue it to the person you're paying for them to tell you whether or not they should get a 1099, because there's certain boxes they have to check. Like if they're an S corporation, they're exempt. But to the extent they should get a 1099, it's the way they're telling you as the payor, hey, this is how you should issue my 1099. And so there's ways to capture that electronically, right? I know, like, we use Track 1099 for the actual 1099 filing, but
Correct.
Track 1099 doesn't offer a W-9 capture service.
It does offer a W-9 capture service. So that may be a best practice for a small business owner to have, and have, subscribe to that, have that as a tool for them so that they can obtain those W-9s. And then, we're big on Gusto. We use Gusto for our payroll for our clients, but Gusto also has a contractor pay feature, which is kind of more for the people you have recurring contractors that you're paying for services. Maybe not, for your lawn care guy or your third party people, but it's electronic, and it's the same concept as when you're on board that contractor, you get a digitally signed W-9, and that's
Right.
saved in their file. And then going forward, you can pay those people via direct deposit through Gusto, and at the end of the year, Gusto files those 1099s on your behalf. So that doesn't fit every
Right.
small business, but if you do have people you're paying recurring for services,
Yeah.
that if you're already using Gusto for payroll, a lot of people don't even realize they have the contractor option. So that would be another tool to use to capture the W-9 digitally and then pay them via direct deposit, and then Gusto just files 1099s for you.
Look, I did that for a client, and we did it. When was it? Just to quickly talk about paying people, and you're talking 1099s, but it kind of nicely fits with paying people, obviously. And I had a client who he's employed as a sales guy, but he also has kind of a side business where he's a distributor of a product, and he was paying people to handle all kind of odds and ends for him, just like expense reports and different things. I said, and he was having to chase them around town to give them checks. I said, dude, we already put your wife on the payroll in this business you have. Just pay him through Gusto. He was like happy as a pig in mud. Like, he was loving this. He was like, dude, I just click a couple buttons. Like, I invite them to onboard electronically. So it's a burden on them to fill their W-9 out properly. If they mess up, they messed up. But they give you the information digitally, which they'll do it easier if they can do it from a phone or any device.
Yep.
And then he was just paying them. He's like loving it.
And then there's the option for reimbursements in there for the
That's a good
contractors
point.
too, so you can pay them for their services and for reimbursements, and it's coded separately. And so if you're in the business where, like that guy
Yeah.
you said has reimbursements, you can
Yeah.
put that in there.
All right. So best practice would be leverage the payment to get a W-9. That's kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, and I mean, even if not that, there should be some type of an internal process of figuring out, hey, these are the new people we pay for services.
Right.
And no, we've talked. We won't get on that point, but we've looking in the mirror at ourselves.
Yeah.
The clients that we work with continuously, setting up a process to say, hey, every quarter we do the accounting work. We're going to tag these certain people as 1099 vendors,
Right.
and then reach out to the client and say, hey, these are based on what we can see. It looks like these people are 1099,
Right.
should be 1099 recipients. So you should go and get the W-9.
Yeah,
And-
so get it out on the front end. But if
Yeah.
not, if you're using, and he's right, we've talked about this in our last staff meeting in terms of working with our clients, where it's like, hey, we get it from the client perspective. They're working with us. They say that should be something you guys help me with. You guys are facilitating, handling my accounting or maybe even paying people. Help me with this. And so we're building out processes to make it easier, kind of a concierge way to be like, listen, we know you don't want to go mess with getting the W-9s. Let us help you with that. So I guess the second point would be let your accounting team either internally or externally help you.
But once again, you have to communicate that, right?
Yeah.
It's not. If you just don't just expect it, have that conversation with your accountant or your internal team and say, hey, we're fresh off of a 1099 season, so there were some pain points. It's a great time now to talk about it, how to make it better for next year, and to be proactive of setting the standard of how we're gonna make this better.
Yeah, and I don't want to, lead people astray. Like, we don't like 1099s either. Like,
No.
Trust me. I mean, it's not something that there's not a lot of value other than just compliance. So sometimes compliance is the value, right?
Yep.
Like, you got to do it, and you'd rather sleep well at night because it's been done properly. And we're not trying to beat you up on this. We're just saying, look, it is required. Figure out a good process how to do it. You can do a lot more with technology now, and maybe just say, hey vendor, I experienced this recently. I did some work for a law firm. They wouldn't pay me until I had and it wasn't like we're not going to pay you. It was like right when they went to pay me, they just said, hey, give me your W-9. No big deal. Yep. Filled it out. I have one on file. Just sent it to them. So just be kind of thinking about that as you work through it.
Yeah, and then additionally, the W-9 is on the IRS website. It's a writable PDF form. You can download it, have a link to it, and you can email it to these vendors. Say, hey, fill this out and send it back to me.
Right.
To try to keep it from here's a piece of paper, physically do it and send it back to me. And
well, just as I'm looking through as we're talking, I just kind of did a W-9 capture search on Google. DocuSign is one. You can use that, like we mentioned, Track 1099. I would imagine Tax 1099, which is another one, is going to offer it. I mean, it's for a fee. Yeah. But listen, if it saves you the time and it gets the job done, use these services. If you have a bill payment provider, like we use, as I'm saying this, Routable, who we use for bill pay, does not do it. But Relay. So another plug for Relay. Relay is an online cloud bank we've moved a lot of clients to. Relay does what we call light bill payment. Not as fully integrated as a lot of bill payment services, but does the trick, paying people via ACH. One of the things you can do when you set up a new vendor in Relay and you onboard them, which essentially is you send them a link to put in their payment details, is it can request a W-9 from them. So not fully integrated in the sense that it lets them fill it out digitally. I think they get a W-9 to fill out and send back, but you get the point. There are ways to make the process easier if you want to, stay in the good graces of the IRS.
In the good graces of the IRS.
I know. Even as I'm saying that, I'm like, but it's just one of those things. So
yeah, but I think it's just all about setting an internal process and being proactive to gather the data that you need. Because the scramble at the end of the year trying to get all these people in a short window, it's just ripe for error, or people giving you the wrong information and you don't have time to double check it and you're just submitting it. And in our experience, a lot of people unfortunately fill out W-9s incorrectly. Yeah. And so we want to make sure if you get it early, you can vet it out and ask the questions and make sure it's correct.
So I have a question for you on the Track 1099 W-9 capture. Does it do the EIN matching? Does it because I know when we issue 1099s, we use Track 1099 to process them, and it will tell us no, that's a bad EIN. It doesn't match with the IRS records have on file. I wonder if the W-9 capture does that.
That's a good question.
Because it might save you some heartache right then and there. Because to your point, the vendors have the leverage when you're in a short window. Mm-hmm. They say something like, I'm just going to blow this email off. By the time it gets past January 31st, they're not going to ask me. Yeah. But if you do this early in the year and you can drip on them and you can get it, even then you could then check the information. Yeah. Yeah. All right. That's probably everything you wanted to know about W-9s. Quinton, I think, feels a little bit better. Got that off your chest?
I can breathe better now.
Yep. So point is, guys, you got to issue them. Nobody loves it. It's one of those things in kind of doing business. It's just kind of a cost of doing business. You got to issue them. So make the process easier. Work with somebody throughout the year who can help you get them done, or use these tools and leverage. I hate to say that, but leverage to get your vendors to give you a 1099. Make this filing season. Or 2023 due January 31st, 2024. Make that a lot easier on you, and have your accountants quit emailing you. So anyway, we'll see you next time, guys.